A very good evening to one and all. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. It's a beautiful Saturday evening and the Digital Jesuits are here presenting to you Jesuit education for life. Men and women for others. I warmly welcome on behalf of the Digital Jesuits all our Jesuit alumni over here. The Jesuits, nuns, religious, priests, friends and families, our benefactors, and our friends. Well, we are here today for a special purpose. Yes, this is our contribution with regard to 500 years to commemorate the conversion experience of Saint Ignatius. It was in the year 1548 that the Society of Jesus started their first school in Messina, Sicily. And 473 years to be precise, we are in 2021, we are looking at over 4,000 institutes of education all over the world. Be it schools, colleges, universities, catering to 2.5 million students every year. We are definitely transforming the world over these years. If you want to talk about Jesuit education, people look at the alumni. And we have famous alumni across the world. And not only in one particular field, but in various fields. Starting from the great philosophers, we have René Descartes, David Hume, Heidegger. We have famous world leaders, Bill Clinton, Tony Abbott, Fidel Castro, Jyoti Basu, and our very own Abdul Kalam. Coming to Hollywood and Bollywood, we have Denzel Washington, Salma Hayek, Tom Holland, and Bollywood Vidya Balan. Sportsperson Rahul Dravid, Patrick Ewing, the famous basketball player from the US, musicians like Zakir Hussain and the late Freddie Mercury. And the list just goes on and on and on. Today we are here not as Jesuits trying to boast about our education, but to hear from those who have gone through Jesuit education, that is our Jesuit alumni. To listen from them, their very own experiences of life going through Jesuit education. Yes, we as Jesuits have always yearned and strived to bring the best out of a student. But it is not for himself or herself, but it is also for them to becoming someone for the other, bringing about a change. Well, the first speaker of today, and we are glad and blessed to have him in our midst. We are graced to have him in our midst. We have the Regional Assistant for South Asia, Father M.K. George. He was the ex-provincial of Kerala. He has done his doctorate in education sociology from the University of Pune, the director of Indian Social Institute, Bangalore for 6 years from 2009. We are happy to have him here to give us his keynote address. Father M.K. George, over to you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and
yes,
clear.
Father George, yes.
Would you allow me to share the screen or I send you the PowerPoint?
You can share, Father.
Okay.
You can share.
Share screen.
Okay. Can you see it?
Very much, yeah.
Okay. Okay, my dear friends, I want to greet each one of you and thank the Digital Jesuits for arranging this session and inviting me to be with you. in sharing my few thoughts on Jesuit education for life in a post-COVID world. I have titled it, and I'm very happy to be with Father Sunny, the moderator, Mr. Shintal Kumar, Dr. Devendra Singh, Mr. Sandeep Singh, and Mr. Valentine Borges. And I have already a complaint, why did the Jesuits forget women? So, because we are men and women for others. Anyway, I hope women will speak up and say, make your presence clear. Now, I want to begin with a personal experience. During the first lockdown in India in March 2020, I happened to be in Jamshedpur, unfortunately in the heavenly campus of XLRI. For those of you who know XLRI, almost 50 acres of greenery, well laid out roads and walkways, gardens, friendly people. Everything was safe for us. But the news around was not good. The stranded migrant laborers, some who are risking their lives to return home, stories of increasing infections. After a while, special trains started running, and some of them being carriers of infection. There was shortage of essential goods slowly creeping in, and people were desperate. But I was among the fortunate and protected ones. But one of those nights, I noticed that the big auditorium in the campus being open and had people moving up and down. Auto rickshaws coming and going. And as curious as I was, I peeped in and I knew what was happening. Volunteers from the XLRI campus were collecting food items and packing them for distribution in the slums and poor locations of the state. I was really touched. I knew in person that the Jesuit education had helped at least some to be men and women for others. Of course, for over 3 months, I was locked down in Jamshedpur. I watched the campus getting involved in food distribution, helping the government to plan relief work, and practicing what Jesuits were always teaching, cura personalis, personal care. They were forming leaders in service. So here is my first assertion. If the COVID-19 virus has taught us anything, it is that the goal of Jesuit education, articulated as forming leaders in service, is more than ever the real and only goal of education, Jesuit education. In fact, any education worth its salt. Our Father General Arturo says forcefully in his new book, Forming Leaders is one of the main challenges of the world. Now, the context makes it all the more urgent. In managing the pandemic, critical observation shows that in dealing with this pandemic, there has been a huge failure of political and other leadership, except for some rare exceptions. I'll take just one example, that is Britain. Writing in New York Times, Sir Samuel Earle wrote about the British experience this way, and I'm quoting, 125,000 people died of COVID virus, for which responsibility for the handling of the pandemic was put squarely on Mr. Boris Johnson's door by Mr. Dominic Cummings, his former advisor. One of the highest COVID death rates in the world, worst economic downturn in the group of G7. The country had to impose the third strictest lockdown globally. Story by story, scandal by scandal, Mr. Johnson has been exposed as a slapdash, venal, incompetent leader. But with healthy approval ratings and at the helm of a party boasting an 80-seat majority, his power is assured. It is irrelevant that he is incompetent. Mr. Earle describes the leadership of Mr. Johnson as a dizzying blend of deception, bravado, and self-deprecation. The jarring dissonance that defines his government, at once electorally successful and socially destructive. Now, this is a phrase which is applicable to many other countries, electorally successful but socially destructive. In fact, yet another critical observer wrote this, and I quote, "Studies by political scientists say that countries led by right-wing cultural populists were worst among the performers in tackling the pandemic," unquote. Now, to get back to the analysis of Mr. Earle, in a very sharp observation, he adds, the success of Britain's vaccination program, Britain has delivered more doses than any other country in Europe, has let Mr. Johnson reframe his tragedy as a triumph. But for tens and thousands of grieving families, it comes like a little consolation. I would like you, my listeners, to replace the example of Britain with so many other countries in the world, where you will see that the leaders failed miserably, but with gimmicks and political maneuvering, with strong electoral success, the leaders continue to be socially destructive. And therefore, Jesuit education should focus on political formation. I come back once again to Father Arturo Sosa, our general. He says, and I quote, "One of our greatest current responsibilities is political formation so that everyone may develop a sense of citizenship. We need to do more to form people who are called to public service and who can draw on an experience of Ignatian spirituality. The search for the common good should become our priority. Invest in holistic education that forms people in the awareness that they are world citizens." In this context, Father Arturo reminds us that the Third World War is already being fought in piecemeal. In fact, he's quoting Pope Francis. Pope Francis had said, even today, after the second failure of another world war, perhaps one can speak of a third war, one fought piecemeal with crimes, massacres, destruction. Therefore, the Jesuit ideal of justice and reconciliation is the way. Peace education is the way. The best response to the piecemeal world war comes from education, interreligious dialogue, and a long-term vision for humanity, reminds Father Arturo. Now, Pope Francis, as a synodal model of church, is creating ripples in the world. Why does he remain a credible leader amidst a whole set of diabolic leaders? Because he's simple, because he loves the poor, because he believes and lives a leadership of service. And to form leaders in service, we need to have a critical understanding of the context. We need to critique ideologies. Jesuit education calls us to a critical understanding of the context in which we live. It invites our attention to the dangers of ideologies and our becoming slaves of ideologies. Recent times, we have witnessed the diabolic ways in which ideologies have exterminated millions of people. Who can ever forget how the ideology of Nazism exterminated 6 million Jews, of them 1 million children in recent history? One question we should ask ourselves is how any thinking human mind would again succumb to such ideologies. However, today we see all around the world millions of people becoming slaves of ideology. We have seen how theocratic societies have become murderers. Millions have been murdered. Still, when humanity goes for theocratic states, how do we understand the situation? Think of the conspiracy theories spread all around the world and millions again who swallow them. The reminder of Father Arturo becomes relevant. He says, Jesuit universities can play a role in denouncing such ideologies and help people protect against them. Professors and students should encourage and develop critical thinking. The students should be equipped to unmask ideologies and false ways of thinking that undermine the individual and the society. Last century, we know the isms like Nazism, Stalinism, communism, fascism, consumerism, capitalism, and socialism have all had their ideological overtones, which undermine the solidarity and the dignity of the human person. My dear friends, it's not going to be easy. Jesuit education is not going to be easy. But more than ever, the Jesuit educational goals and pedagogy become relevant, forming leaders in service, engaging in political formation, critical understanding of context, being critiques of all ideologies, and learning to focus on human dignity and human solidarity. The universal apostolic preferences of the Society of Jesus, which all of us own up, they give us a roadmap for Jesuit education, showing the way to God, the divine, not just any particular religion, but to the divine, to walk with the poor, to accompany young people in the creation of a hopeful future, and to collaborate in the care of our common home, our Mother Earth. As Papa Francis keeps saying, no one is saved alone. With God's help, it will be possible to build a world of peace and thus to be saved together. Finally, my dear friends, the simple articulation of Jesuit education is our way. This is the way, my dear Jesuit educators. May we have the audacity to walk the way. Thank you once again, and may we have a fruitful sharing and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Father M.K. George. That was a wonderful insight into Jesuit education and our role in transforming people's lives and making them leaders for the society. Now we come to the crux of today's event, and that is the panel discussion. We have chosen 4 panelists, Jesuit alumni, across the width and breadth of our nation. We have Mr. Senthil Kumar. He's the president of the Jesuit Alumni Association of India. He's the alumni of St. Joseph's College, Trichy. We have Dr. Devendra Singh from Jharkhand. He is the CEO of the Institute of Continuing Education, Research and Training. He's the alumni of St. Xavier's College, Ranchi. Mr. Sandeep Singh, Sales and Operation Manager at Green Lantern Engineering Private Limited, the alumni of St. Joseph's Indian High School, Bangalore. Mr. Valentine Borges from Mumbai, the alumni of St. Xavier's College, and he is the part of Muktangan Education Trust, playing an important role in the Research and Science Department. He is also the visiting faculty at St. Xavier's College and Institute of Communication. We gladly welcome the 4 of you, and we are happy that you were ready to share your experiences of Jesuit education, how exactly it has transformed you in your life. And bringing it all together, we have our moderator, Father Sunny Jacob. He is the Assistant for Mission and Identity with the Secretariat of Jesuit Education Specialist, Educate Marges, Ireland. No better person for today's event. The one who's going to anchor our program today, our moderator, Father Sunny Jacob. Over to you, Father Sunny.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joshua. And thank you very much for Father George for putting us in perspective. You have really challenged us, Jesuit education, and you have set actually a huge responsibility for all the educators of our Jesuit schools, forming men and women for others in the present context, especially as a post-pandemic period. It's a great challenge. I appreciate all our panelists, esteemed panelists. 2 of them were Mr. Senthil Kumar is the current president of JAI, and Dr. Devendra Singh was the former president of Jesuit Alumni Association of India. Very well experienced people, and the rest of them also are our alumni, and they are experienced in the topic which we have placed before. Before I hand over to them, let me remind you, especially for the audience who are here. In 1973, Father Arupe, former general of the Society of Jesus, addressed to a group of Jesuit high school alumni in Valencia in Spain, that's in 1973, where he articulated the purpose of Jesuit education, that is making men and women for others. Today, our prime educational objective must be to form men and women for others. Men and women who will live not for themselves, but for God. Men and women who cannot even conceive of love of God, which does not include love for the least of their neighbors. Men and women completely convinced that the love of God, which does not issue in justice for others, is a farce, he says. We have been able to perceive the serious injustices which are building around the world of men and women, a network of domination, oppression, and abuses, which Father George articulated in the current context specifically for us to reflect. And I'm sure this panelist will come out with their own experiences, and we will have an interactive session on this aspect. Father Arupe says to all of us, to begin with, let us note that these dichotomies are differences of stress rather than contradictions of ideas. In view of the present call to justice and liberation, where should we put our stress? In our attitudes? Is it in our activities or our lifestyle? Where? Then he says, he challenges us. In 1973, as Father George just placed before us, in 73, he challenged us. Justice among persons or justice before God? What do we want? Love of God or love of our neighbor? What we want? Christian charity or human justice? Personal conversion or social reform? Liberation in this life or salvation in the life to come? Development through that inculturation of human values or development through the application of scientific technologies and social ideologies. My dear friends, we have the alumni. Alumni are actually the integral part of our educational system. Without taking much time, let us listen to these wonderful men among us and those who have experienced from childhood onwards. They were with us, passed to the graduation also, some of them from our schools, did their higher education, everything. And they were part of us because the values Jesuits communicated made them what they are. So I request our panelists, take a few minutes of your reflections you placed before. You are all aware of the restrictions of the time. I'll give you initial introduction about the topic, that is Jesuit education for life. And what is your experience as a Jesuit student? And what is your vision for the current world as Father George and through Father Arupe and Father Arturo Sosa and Father Pope Francis, etc., placed us before? Let us listen one by one a few minutes. After that, we may have interactive sessions. I may put some questions, etc. Over to Mr. Chendil Kumar. Let us listen to Chendil Kumar, who is professionally, he is a chartered accountant and very well-known person in the JAI circle. As the president of JAI, he is doing a wonderful work leading the entire Alumni Association of India. Over to Mr. Chendil Kumar.
Thank you, Father Sunny. First and foremost, I would like to greet Father George and rest of the panelists, my good friend Devendra Singh, Mr. Valentine, Mr. Sandeep, and also thank the digital Jesuits. This is a wonderful topic which teaches not only the academic studies but lesson for life. I was educated in St. Joseph High School and St. Joseph College, Trichy, where Dr. Abdul Kalam was one of the leading alumnus in St. Joseph College. One thing I learned from my younger days, but I didn't have the feeling about that at that stage, about universal brotherhood. I think after this COVID, now we understand that no places can be isolated. So, for example, if Tamil Nadu is affected, uh, you need help from rest of the country. So, rest of the countries also we have to source vaccination and others from the rest of the world. So, this shows that universal brotherhood and the respect for life, more in addition to the academic studies, is very important. That's why I learned from the Jesuits in St. Joseph High School. When I was a young student, I used to see Father Bergeron from France. He was a French Jesuit. Father, um, uh, there was another father from Ireland, and most of the principals were educated in Sorbonne University, France. So that showed and inculcated the spirit of universal brotherhood. So men and women for others. So that showed my way that in not to have a myopic idea of a small place, but on a global basis. And I'm very happy. Many of our Jesuit alumni have been doing wonderful services in this COVID pandemic, like helping migrant workers, giving them food, material, and more importantly, the Jesuit Alumni Association is also collaborating with the Jesuit Resource Hub in establishing a sort of a call center, and probably later on we'd like to convert it into a sort of a help center for anyone who wants help during this pandemic. So thank you very much for the initial introduction, and I pass on to Father Sunny Jacob for the moderation.
Mr. Chandalji, you brought out that very, very important aspect. I think you put us in again in perspective in talking that universal brotherhood is the crust of our existence. In fact, we cannot be separate entities. We are all an extension of the other. That's what the idea you are bringing. Wonderful. Let's listen to Mr. Devendra Singh. If you can briefly put up the highlights, what you feel as a Jesuit education, and what is your vision?
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, Devendra, go ahead.
So let me first try to keep it very, very simple. And I think that makes it more interesting as well. Let me tell you about myself and my family. My father was a Jesuit student from St. John's in Ranchi, and I studied in St. Xavier's School for 11 years and St. Xavier's College for 5 years. But I very proudly say about it that I was never allowed to pass out of my school. I still keep on visiting my school as regularly I used to visit when I was there. And then later, when I got married and I had children, me and my wife decided to put our children also into St. Xavier's, the school that I had visited. And this way, I can very humbly tell you that my family has an association with the Jesuits for the last 68 years. 68 years might not be the age of a lot of people who are participating today over here, but that is the length of our association with the Jesuits. About the Jesuit system of education, let me tell you, there is a saying in Hindi, "Mare bina swarg nahi milta hai," which means that you have to die in order to get heaven, which also means that you have to lead by example, without which you will not be able to dissipate and teach what you want to give. And that is what has been the philosophy and ideology of the Jesuits. They have lived with it, they have shown examples, and that is how they created men and women like us. The Jesuits gave me the opportunity to lead the alumni nationwide in India, as well as to demonstrate our great work globally with the World Union of Jesuit Alumni. So any amount of words will not fill up my thanks for the Jesuits for what they have given me in my life. About the philosophy that I found the Jesuits to be working on in school, When I attended school, we had the Belgian and Austrian fathers, which were followed by the Malayali fathers in Ranchi. And they had a wonderful team of teachers who were our mentors. So the selection of the right people at the right place and creating the team who can build men and women for the others is the crux of the Jesuit system of work. Putting the English language as primary would always make you a global citizen, and every single Jesuit school, whether vernacular or otherwise, teaches English, which means that you are creating global citizens. Provision of international journals, encyclopedias, international history being taught, and the world geography being taught in all Jesuit schools and institutions also shows how much our concern for the world is. I was very happy to see a small telescope on a tripod in the office of my school prefect, which showed his interest and inclination towards astronomics, which was an exposure for all our students to understand that this world is a part of the cosmos, and the cosmos is our actual home. It is not only this earth. So whatever we think and do, whatever we think and plan, we do it for our world here and the larger world in the cosmos. One example of morality that I would like to tell you is we had Father Victor Rosner, who used to show us English movies in our theater. That was a 60 mm projector, and these English movies invariably had some kind of kissing scenes or a pre-sexual scene. Right when the scene was supposed to come, Father Victor Rosner used to stand up in front of the lamp of the projector and made sure that that scene was eliminated from our vision, while he was also narrating the story of the movie to us to make it a better understanding. At that time, we used to hoot in the hall and ask him to move away. But he never shattered his thoughts, and he made sure that we pick up the right morality while we are still learning and enjoying the movie. Having said all that, what should be our role in the world today as Jesuit alumni? One, we must always be determined to call a spade a spade. Two, we have to stand up in our own respective professions and vocations and do the best, perform to the best of our capabilities, and set good examples for people at large. Three, we have to make and we have to dissipate and share an opinion of ourselves, about us, about the society, about the community, and about our families. Four, we have to pursue and continue to spread righteousness in the world. If we go for these four virtues, I think we make the world a better place to live in collectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Devendraji. You brought again your personal experience you brought into in the Jesuit educational experience which you went through. And very many points you brought out. And one of them is making a global citizen. Giving a global perspective in the classroom is so important. In fact, tell you, that is one of the identifiers of Jesuit schools of the 21st century. And you have brought out. And also another area which you, I think, brought out for our reflection is that there is no compromise on competence, but we need to create people of conscience, compassion, and commitment. Let's welcome Mr. Sandeep Singh for his initial remarks. Over to you, Sandeep Singh ji.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
I'm an alumnus of St. Joseph's Indian High School, Bangalore. Good evening, and I feel really privileged to be a part of such esteemed company. And good evening to all the attendees as well. I hope all of you and your families are doing well in these turbulent times. When I got an invitation to be a part of this event, very rarely does it happen when you take a moment and look back on the journey that you have had, especially the educational journey that you have had. And most times the recent memories are more prominent in your mind. So when I got the invitation, I immediately said yes, and I had to just take a moment and reflect upon how that journey was. And I discussed this with my family that how amazing that entire educational experience was when I was part of this institution. and slowly I started realizing and how much it has made me the person that I am today. Because when I look back, educational institutions are known for certain competencies and certain prowesses that they have. But when I look back at the institution that I was part of, a holistic approach and all-round development was so essential to their entire service. It was not only about the academics, it was not only about the sports, it was a complete all-round development that they catered to. And I believe that in many ways has laid the foundation to the personality that I've become today. And sometimes you fail to appreciate that and because it's so distant in your memory. Because at that impressionable age, that kind of an approach is extremely important because you are very, you can say naive, but not in a very negative way. You are enthusiastic, you are eager to learn. It's a whole new world. That entire phase of schooling from your middle school to high school, it's a progression in your life. And that becomes the base and it opens you up. In many ways, we were like infants and the molding happens in that phase and you're let out to go and face the hurdles of the world. So I believe that that's how indirectly and maybe subconsciously they cater to these things, which we probably as students did not appreciate back then or didn't even realize that they were doing it in a very subtle manner. So when I look back, it's that entire approach and all good memories. I don't have one moment of repentance or regret or a negative memory. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here right now. And that's how the experience was for me. And it made me ready for a lot of things that happened after that. It made me ready for the world, which is important because we are in such a dynamic situation right now. The world is fast paced, the society is fast paced, and even things that weren't available a decade ago are part of our life. So in some way you need to be adaptable, and that's what you learn when you have a holistic development and you have this eagerness to keep learning all the time. It makes you adaptable. So in ever changing times, you adjust, and what better example to give than the times that we are in right now. So we are going to be thrown curveballs as we go along. We don't know what else is lying ahead of us. But at that foundation level, when you're being nurtured, if the right approach is used, that lives for a long time. It leaves a very lasting impression. So those are my starting remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. That is beautiful. In fact, if you summarize this, what you are saying is the only thing that is certain today is uncertainty. In that uncertainty, we need to be educating people for a holistic development. And that includes rational capabilities to be developed, or also emotional capabilities, and also moral capabilities. I think that is what we are seeing the Jesuit education as a whole today. Thank you very much for that remark, and let us listen to Valentine, who is an education researcher also. We will be happy to listen to your initial remarks on Jesuit education and your experience.
Thank you, Father Jacob. Let me begin by thanking you for having me here. I'm really proud to be part of this esteemed panel. To begin with, my personal experience in a Jesuit institution started over 20 years ago. I joined in as a student, and let me be very honest, I've never left. I walked in and I never walked out. And I'm sure most of the fellow panelists and alumni from a Jesuit institution feel the same. I started my career in St. Xavier's College. I joined in as a student. I think for people like me, I come from a humble background, from a typical middle class family. So for us, being in an institution like St. Xavier's or any Jesuit institution is a true cannonball moment. Most Jesuits understand what I mean. So when we walk in and you suddenly see hundreds of students, hundreds of colleagues around you, and you wonder, what are you doing here? But what I like best of St. Xavier's College, and I think in every Jesuit institution, is that there is a place for everyone. Everyone coexists, and there are opportunities for everyone. So people like me who would sit quiet otherwise in a lecture kind of had an opportunity to shine and outperform in other activities that were part of the Jesuit way of life, part of St. Xavier's College. And I say that is something I really cherish, and that has helped me in my life in a long way. I admit that there is a thin balance between liberalism, spiritualism, and tolerance that one earns in a Jesuit institution. And although being a science student all my life, I think the socialist brush that I've had studying in a Jesuit institution has taught me to coexist and to accept people from other walks of life and from other thought processes as well. What I like best about studying in an institution like St. Xavier's is that it's accepted. It's fine that you have an opinion. My teachers, my colleagues accept the fact that you can have an opinion where it may differ from theirs, but it's fine. And like Dr. Devendra said, call a spade a spade. I think Xavier's provided me that platform. And also the socialist brush that I had being in a Jesuit institution for 20 years and more has shaped my career as a researcher. So I work with Muktangan. We are primarily into education for the marginalized, and a lot of my research is influenced by my experiences in Xavier's and the people whom I worked and I studied with in Xavier's. So I really thank the Jesuit institution for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Valentine. You spoke from your heart. It's very clear that it is very much emotionally you experienced the Jesuit education. And one of the points which you said is we learn in Jesuit education to agree to disagree. We all have different opinions. None of us is poor, perfect. None of us poor means there is Howard Gardner says nobody is useless, perhaps useless. You all have our own opinions. We accept. I may not agree with you 100%. That's what you learned in Jesuit education, and therefore you got developed a perspective, whether it is socialist or whatever it is, accepting people. That's what you are saying. Very good. Thank you very much, and let us move towards. I just ask the panelists a few points for your own further reflections. And I'll start with Father George. In the introductory remark, he talked about the current context and especially the need for leadership. And that gives not only about the people to become leaders, it's also giving the responsibility for the Jesuit institutions to create more leaders who think critically. And all of you are aware the NEP today, New National Education Policy, talks about critical thinking as one of the components, one of the key principles of education policy. I ask all the panelists, what is your response and how do you see today is in a complex world, especially this pandemic has played the role of an X-ray, showing us what exactly is behind the curtain, what we cannot see, it has been shown to us. So in the situations of this sort, where Father George placed us very well and articulated so much to reflect for us, I ask Devendra Singh, what is your take on what Father said, quoting from Pope Francis, quoting from Father General and so on, the need for good leadership, leadership that is responsible to the society, samajik pratibadhata we call, social responsibility, socially responsible people. How do you look at that? And could you unmute and speak?
Yeah. Once I happened to go through the list of careers that are available in the world, and I saw a list of more than 7,500 different types of careers. When you talk of leadership, is it only the political leadership, or we are talking about leadership in your own profession, vocation, or whatever you want to do in, you excel? In my opinion, whether it be the Jesuit education at the primary level, elementary level, school level, college level, or the professional level, what we are actually trying to do is give opportunity to people to explore yourselves. When you explore yourself, you try to find out what exactly you are good at. When you try to find what you're good at, your teachers, your mentors, your principal, people who are observing you silently in your activity in the school or college, they are looking at you and they actually virtually guide you to your area of interest. This is one thing that I find very unique in the Jesuit system of education, where every single mentor of every single student, whether it be in the school level or in the college level, is aware of his children, his students. And when it comes to guidance, they are out and out to support you to pursue your dream, your aspiration, and your best, which actually helps in creating leaders, not only in politics as we have them today in the world over, but also in all significant areas of careers where we make the world better to live in with all our inputs, our contributions, whether it be the service industry or it be research or it be the production. Thank you.
Even in religion, we need
Even
good
in-
leaders. You know?
Sure, sure.
Very good. So you brought out that point. Mr. Chandil Kumar, I just ask you one question. That is, in your own experience, you are St. Joseph Trichy, how does your institution encourage and support the development of students? As just now, Devendra also said, in various aspects, multi-layers, no? All our talents and capabilities developed. What is your experience? It's not only about students, even the Jesuit institution as such encourage the faculty, staff, and alumni. What is your experience?
Thank you, Father. St. Joseph College, I would like to talk both of St. Joseph High School and St. Joseph College because I am alumnus of both in the same campus. St. Joseph College now has been the third cycle. It has got NAAC ranking, very high ranking. So as the alumni, the NAAC awarded 4 out of 4 marks for the alumni support for the college. So we are very glad that the alumni were able to make a very big role. And I'm sure that the college is now opening its doors for the internship for students. And during the pandemic period, many of the students have had difficulty in paying their fees, and we are trying to help them out to meet their educational cost. And these are some of the few activities. And the faculty, many of them are in touch to keep abreast with the latest developments. So we try to put them on to contact with the peers, and sometimes, you know, the known and the best thing about the Jesuit education institution is we have the best network in the world. I used to boast that we are the only association or alumni association throughout the world where we have got a 5-level contact level, one at the unit level, then probably the province level, then the zone level, national level, and the world level. So we have to definitely stress the need for that we are a part of a global organization. So that itself gives a lot of confidence for the students as well as the faculty, and they themselves will develop the desire to open up, and we are trying to make Google Forms so that, you know, they get in touch with each other on a peer-to-peer contact for a greater glory of the God and exchanging the ideas.
Thank you, Chandil. And those who are listening to us, if you have any specific questions, you can put it on the chat box. Definitely, we will take up a few of your opinions, your questions, and so on for clarification. Over to Mr. Sandeep Singh ji. I just ask you one very specific question. For example, since you said a very personal experience and you are proud of your Jesuit education, how did your Jesuit education help you to learn respect for self? You know, respecting self is very important. Being self-esteemed is so important. How does the Jesuit education help you to have self-respect? Also for others and for all the global community and for the universe itself. It's a multi-layers, different levels of respect. Did you learn to value care and compassion because you were treated with care and compassion in your school life?
I would like to answer this with a particular element that was very evident in the school. Like Mr. Valentine already mentioned, we had people from all walks of life. There was no set demographic that was a part of that school. We had people from all types of economic status, all types of social status. So what would happen is when you have people from all walks of life, the treatment of the institution never really changed. There was never a discriminatory factor. There was a never partial approach taken. You all were treated the same. So what happens when you are a part of that audience and you see people from different walks of life being treated as one, you realize that in a very true sense that you are one. It is a level playing field. You all are deserving and you end up being there because you are deserving. So what happens is when the higher authority, in this case, the institution or the teachers or the faculty, the people that we look up to, they treat you and respect you irrespective of where you come from. You end up doing that with your fellow mates. You learn from the authority that is there, the way they are treating. There are approaches taken. There are approaches taken which are situational, which are subjective to impart better learning. But when it comes to treatment, it was definitely a very equal approach that was taken. And that stayed with me for a long time, because people there had different situations that they were a part of, that there were personal hurdles that they were going through, and it could be financially or anything in terms of even competency. Not everybody was capable in the same way in the class. So what would happen is, if there was a distinction, a differentiation of any kind, that would probably leave an impression, because I would like to come back to that point again. It is a very impressionable age, these educational years. The way people are treated around you, you end up imitating that. So when a person, a teacher who is, let's say, 40 years old or 50 years old, or such a seasoned teacher, experienced teacher, is treating all of them with so much respect and is nurturing them with so much care, it would have been foolish of me to not imbibe that and replicate that with my batchmates. And that's how you end up respecting others, and you start respecting yourself, because you are appreciated there for your capability, and your it's a common theme right now to call a spade, which is very true. You're appreciated for what you're capable of, and that in turn, when that appreciation also comes, there is a sense of respect that comes in, where there's a confidence that comes, because you feel that you're capable, you feel that this appreciation is coming, and then slowly that self-respect aspect of it grows as well. So you start respecting others, and there is a sense of self-respect that sort of happens parallelly.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting to see. And in Jesuit schools, we are supposed to be giving the self-esteem. That's the primary way to teach, and may not be 100%, because we are all human beings. We fail. Our teachers are not getting into that level and so on. But what you are saying is so important for us. As a researcher, Mr. Valentine, I just ask you, what is your experience? For example, when you studied, as well as when you look at your institution today, how does your institution acknowledge and reward excellence in research? Suppose, there was an atmosphere of research encouragement in your schooling, in the whatever level it is, for the students as well as the teachers and so on? Number one. Number two is, how does this contribute to the flourishing of your intellectual and moral life? And when I say yours, it's not only for you. You can expand it to the students as a whole also, but starting from your own experience.
So the first point I'd like to make is that my teachers and my seniors, they always played to our strengths. So all of us may not be good at everything, but what my professors, my teachers would do is identify the strengths in each of us and build up on that. So we were never made to feel left out, or we were never made to feel that, oh, you may not do research because you're not good in a certain lab skill, or you cannot write a report because your English may not be good. I think playing to our strengths really helps us. It makes us feel wanted. And the moment you feel wanted and belong, you give in your 100%. And I think that is something which every a team should kind of inculcate in them. A team that plays to its strengths definitely would excel in every field. This definitely has helped me personally in my career, because I carry out the same in my team that I work with. I make sure no one is made to feel left out. In St. Xavier's College, especially, we have people from diverse walks of life, and some of them have even switched careers. So it's necessary to be accommodative, play to their strengths, make them feel wanted, and it's done very effectively in the college. To build up a research acumen, we have something called as the honors program. We also have a dedicated laboratory for faculty. So faculty who are inclined towards research could spend in their hours of work over there. Students get the benefit of it as well, because they start being part of these smaller programs that the faculty plan for them. And so year after year, you build competence in every new batch that comes in. And since you work together in a team, there's core competence, you're playing with your strengths, and you kind of excel. And what I see is over the years, it's not immediate, but if this continues for the next 15 years, 20 years, I think we would build a really, really strong research acumen in our students and in our institution.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Now, you all shared your personal experience and about your institution and so on. And we all are somewhat aware of the Jesuit education, the current context and so on. So I just place that a lot of questions are coming. I'm seeing I'll take up these questions just after 1 or 2 minutes. Dr. Devendra Singh, and this question I'm putting not only Devendra, anybody can respond. Here, those is panelists here, 4 of you. As I said in the beginning, if you look at this invisible virus, this pandemic, I take this image as, this pandemic played like an X-ray for us. Many of our misplaced priorities have been revealed to us. Whether it is healthcare, where we lacked, and we placed something else as so important. We accumulated lethal weapons and nuclear weapons and so on, thinking that will save us. Suddenly, we came to know that many of these things have become meaningless. What is important is, what is so important for us is oxygen. What is so important for us, healthcare, fitness, and also education. I and Devendra and all of you, I'm sure, and especially I can see Devendra and our JAI president, Chandil Kumar, and so actively involved in the current context to set the wrong priorities right through various activities. May I ask all of you, in the current context of today, in the pandemic, what do you see as the Jesuit alumni's role? It's not only simply, I mean by giving charitable things, but also reflecting seriously in the depth level. What do you all think? To see the root cause of it, a root cause of injustices, root cause of several other results of this pandemic which is going to affect us. Over to Chandil, over to Devendra Singh first, and then others will say. Briefly. Unmute, Devendra Singh.
One thing that I have always noticed right from my preparatory class in school is that we were always taught about morality. We had a small leaflet coming in, which was called the Soldiers of God. In Hindi also it was published, and it was called Krus Veer. And this leaflet used to come to our school every week or every month, and we had free access to it. It was available at the principal's office outside, and anybody could pick it up, take a copy, and read it. We had moral instruction classes in school every week. In class 8, 9, and 10, we had the teachings of the New Testament also. For the Catholic students, we had catechism as well as the school chapel to go for prayers. What I'm leading at is we were always from the very beginning taught about morality. What is the negative side is that when we are taught morality in the school and the child goes back home and says to his father, Papa, somebody has come to meet you outside, and the father says, go out and tell him that I'm not at home.
Good question.
Right? And that boy is so perplexed. He says, I'm not supposed to speak a lie. That is what my school teaches me. When I go home and when I go into the society, when I go into my friends, when I go into my community or my workplace, I see that there is an element of lie, distrust going on everywhere. It is always a conflict in the mind. This is the conflict which is prevailing throughout the world today. Righteousness versus greed.
Thank you.
So, as Jesuits, as Jesuit alumni, we have to bring back the world to the righteousness path, to the morality path, and away from greed. I'll give you an example of Sant Kabir. He used to live in Allahabad, Banaras, and a king happened to visit him with a lot of problems because his sons were not cooperating with him. And he asked for relief from Kabir. The person who had guided him to Kabir said that you ask Kabir for something to accept as a gift. He said, Kabir, I want to give you something. And Kabir called his wife Loi outside the hermitage and said, Loi, he wants to give you something. Just ask what you want. She goes inside and does not come back out, only yells from inside. She says, I have enough for today. I don't need it for tomorrow. We will see what happens tomorrow. But the problem now in the world is that we are planning about the day after, the year after, the centuries after, as if we are immortals. That is where the crux of the problem is.
Yes. So we have to teach children a righteous way of looking at things and practicing that righteousness. Anybody else among you? Anybody just briefly before we move to the questions? Number of questions have come.
Yeah, I would like to add to this. Sorry, sir. So, Senjal, sir, please continue, sir.
I would like to supplement what Dr. Devendra Singh mentioned. I think as alumni, we have been taught from the younger days by the Jesuit fathers not to have a myopic idea, which I wanted to repeat on. We have to be global citizens. And especially with the pandemic, as Father Sunny Jacob said, many of the countries were thinking about nuclear arsenal, but they were missing they're having a chink in the armor about the ordinary thing of oxygen. So now we have a wonderful opportunity that we have a combined experience. For example, Bokaro, they have been doing wonderfully well with the filling up of oxygen cylinders. Now Loyola College wants to have a plant within the campus to help the general public to have oxygen. And similarly in Ahmedabad, there are alumni who are putting in subsidy in funding respirators. And one of our alumni has got the license with the NASA license to manufacture ventilators. So our ultimate thing is, through our education, we have been inculcated to have a networking. So we should develop that and we should strengthen it. I think jointly, the single hand will not make a noise. Both the hands makes a noise. That is what we learned from the Jesuit. So
thank you. So
we are an all India level institution and also globalism. So we should take advantage of that not only in serving for COVID, but also for all our holistic life. So that's what the alumni association will also, and for example, I would like to appreciate that even this thing, he made a lot of help for the Afghan war victims to have a reconstructive surgery. Very difficult, especially with dealing with Afghan, with the political, diplomatic relationship, hats off to him. So similarly, we are also trying to have a network of leadership, as Father George was saying. Doctors, for example, some of them, many of the students are finding it difficult to, young students are having blood cancer. So, for example, for
Chandil, what you are stressing is there is a need for networking. That is what the pandemic is telling us. Thank you very much. And Sandeep?
Yes, sir. Just to add to the context of the pandemic, I think it has been a very big reality check with respect to how responsible we are. Our responsibility not only lies with our safety, but when we are out there, we are risking other people's safety as well. So a lot of compulsions that we have become slaves to is thrown out there when we are bound to be, we have to be rather safe and follow certain regulations and guidelines for our own safety. I think as individuals, it will show the strength that a person has when it comes to compulsively reacting and doing things which would have been okay when things were normal, but how they are still not in control to go out and still live their normal lifestyle when you need to make that minor modification. But we are doing that at the risk of our own safety and others. So that responsibility, I think when people realize that I am responsible for my safety and the people around me, I think we will be able to get through this turbulent time very quickly.
Thank you very much. Valentine, you have? Yes.
Yeah, I'll just add to it. I think this pandemic has also taught us to coexist. And when I say coexist, it's not only with people as in human beings, but today we realize there are a lot others who exist along with us. For example, the strays on the streets, the birds that visit us. I mean, often we travel to our workplace. We are in the four walls of our offices or wherever we work at, and we tend to just think about ourselves or people who work with us, and mostly human beings. And we forget about the non-human beings that exist, and they are also part of our society. And I think the pandemic has awakened us towards that. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a very important point. This pandemic has also given us that to expand our horizon and seeing the world as much more responsibly as part of a web of what do you call this part of the web of network. Let's see. Now questions are here. A few. I'll take up these questions, and there are some questions specific also for the person. Now, one thing is, how we the collaborators inculcate the feeling of education of learning rather than the feeling of education for earning in the stakeholders like students and parents in this materialistic society. Please guide us. Anyone can answer, because today what the person who asked the question meant is that parents are all looking for more earnings rather than learning. Therefore, what happens is a lot of superficiality is there. We are missing the depth. So, any comment, anyone? It's a question for anybody. Yes, Chandil is saying something.
I would like to share one thing, Father, regarding earning is also important. Internship we should encourage, so that especially alumni, we have to encourage students getting internship, because it's a part of learning. So that is one thing which I think we have the best wherewithal with the network, and that will definitely go for to enhance the learning and ultimately earning. Earning is also important.
Yes, very good. Both in a balanced way. Earning is also important. Earning also is important, and Jai can take it up. Perhaps that's a big way in the coming days. Sure. Anybody else want to respond to that question?
Yeah. So the question is slightly different from what Chantil addressed it like.
Yes.
Basically, we are talking about the development of the human psyche of the
Right.
student, whether he should be having education for knowledge and wisdom or education for developing a career. In my opinion, the first takeaway of education is wisdom, knowledge, and what exactly you want to excel in. But what is happening today is that the materialistic world is teaching us as though education is also being bought by the parents by paying high fees, by providing more infrastructure, and by showing the frills of the infrastructure that is available. For example, air-conditioned schools, air-conditioned buses, and things like that. As in case of APJ or Goenka schools and things like that. Whereas one thing that I want to harp upon right away is when I wanted to get my first child admitted in school, he qualified for the admission in the Delhi Public School, in the DAV group of schools, as well as at St. Xavier's. Now, my wife is from Delhi and she wanted to admit my first child into DPS because the name carried the word Delhi, the Delhi Public School, right? So I said, let us do a research. Since he has the opportunity of joining each of the three schools, let us go and see which one suffices our needs best. We went to first the DAV school. We could not find a good cohesive atmosphere. The teachers were very self-centered. It was a school managed by a corporate, the Metallurgical and Engineering Consultants Limited. We could not find it cohesive for our child. We just walked out. Went to Delhi Public School and we saw the toilets were also broken. Even the door latches of the toilets were not there. Then we came to St. Xavier's School and the very entry to the school, although the floors were just punned with cement, the cleanliness of the school, it was mopped and cleaned even in the afternoon after the children left. That is what impressed my wife most. And she said, I want my child to come here because this is where he is going to learn societal and cultural values.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very, very important. I will come back to this if there is time, because 20 minutes more altogether for us, including the panel, our organizers how to speak. I just ask you another question, which is came from our own higher education secretary here for Joy James. He is asking a very pertinent question for us. Since you were all a product of the past years, did any one of you have come across the IPP, that is Ignatian Pedagogical Paradigm, in your school teaching and learning experience? Anyone?
The way the Ignatian pedagogy is spelt out today, and it has been brought up in the forefront, was not the way it was told to us. It was always a passive learning of the pedagogy. And we were following certain principles that were laid down by the Jesuits, but not exactly defined to us that this is what we are doing. As of today, what we have is a very rational approach to everything. And I tell you that now that we are doing the Adhyayan research also in all the Jesuit schools for maintaining the quality standards in the silver, gold, platinum, and international, I have been a part of those two exercises, and I find that the Ignatian pedagogy is a part of the Adhyayan package itself, where it has been very clearly laid out. And when the student representatives, the teacher representatives, the principal and management of the school are all expected to know and spell it out. This was not the case when we were there.
Thank you. At least you have some. Sandeep, and you see, I ask you also, Valentine, please, you say, because there is, I had the last question, if you remember, I had given to you, just send that one. That has come from Swibert already. So I am asking that question to you. Swibert was also for the former higher education secretary and our good friend. He's asking, rather than always, this looking at the cozy side, the positive sides, patting our own back, that education was fantastic, etc. What do you see? In fact, I read the question. He says, while patting our back for the quality education that we impart, what are the ways to make it more effective so that our students, especially the current times, become real agents of social change and make a difference to our society? And this will be your own way of reflection, maybe for all of us as Jesuits, those who are in charge of education, the principals and masters and so on are here, and Jesuit educationists, teachers are listening you. Can you point out a few things about this specific question?
With respect to this question, I would, I know it's easy to sit here and say this, but it's important for the educational systems not to be rigid. Somewhere they need to have an element of flexibility and an element of adapting to the changes that are happening right now. If I can just give a simple example, social media was not even a factor when we were in our schooling years, right? And now it is a world by itself. We have kids who have smartphones even before we had our first bicycle. So in this age right now, I think the importance of talking about the pros and cons and the highs and lows of a topic like social media needs to become a part of the curriculum. It's not about bashing social media or showing it in a negative limelight. I'm all up for social media because it is building up, it's giving an opportunity to so many entrepreneurs. There are so many successful enterprises that are functioning because of this element. But that is a world by in itself. And when you have a young mind who is in that world alone, I think it's important for it to have some kind of a guidance that what is happening, because it's very easy to get carried away with all the trends and all the things that get viral, and this cocoon of self gratification and self-worth that is being questioned all the time. It is important for them to understand what this medium actually is, and give them the right guidance, or speak about it. When you don't speak about something which is relevant right now, they will try to figure it out themselves in ways that might not be actually productive for them. So that's just a simple example that needs to be maybe spoken about right now when they're in that phase.
Thank you for that clarification. Valentine, do you have anything to add to that one, your own reflection, or I will move to the next question?
So I'll just give one suggestion. What I feel right now is we are a very exams and marks driven society. The education system relies a lot on examinations and a lot on an academic score. And I think it is time now to move to a more skill driven form of education, wherein why can't marks be accompanied by a description of what skill sets the student or the child has built as he progresses from one grade to the other. I think if the examination system is kind of either complemented or completely replaced with a skill-driven system, it will make more sense and produce 21st century global citizens.
Thank you. In fact, the National Education Policy talks about one of the key principles of the NEP is to replace the rote learning system which we are following to a conceptual based education system. I hope that will really come through, and then multiple intelligence based education and so on they're proposing. Hopefully this part will be taken care of, especially the Jesuit value called cura personalis will come into play. Now, one question here is very important, addressed to all panelists. Anyone can address, and it's very, because I put up beginning itself, Father Arupe has placed before us that two conflicts, whether is only creating intellectual monsters or compassionate human beings. So the question here is, in what ways can Jesuit education institutions in today's market world or consumerist world set apart from the students to be citizens who are compassionate and concerned about the most marginalized society, especially in India, the tribals, the Dalits, differently abled, transgenders, etc. Anyone? Yes, Valentine, you are saying. After that, Devendra. Yeah.
So I think if we treat education in like Mr. Senthil Kumar said about internship. So if the system is based on problem solving rather than just learning from a book, so the connectivism, the philosophy of connectivism, I think that would make people from the urban setup more in touch with those from the rural setup, and that's when you start addressing problems of the rural setup, and that will build a deeper connect between the urban and the rural society. Currently, I see there is a huge divide between the two, and there's a question of equity as well. So if we move towards an education system based on connectivism or problem solving, I think that's where the two can meet and address the need.
Thank you. Now we have very little time. So Chandil, I just ask this last question and before I conclude and then over to the
Can
panel.
I
Yeah.
put in half a minute of my contributions to the previous question?
Yes, please, fast.
One thing that I have to tell you, which is already prevalent in schools in Ranchi, the Jesuit schools, is that we already have one pre-preparatory class for the tribal and Christian population in the schools, right? Those are the years where you have the formative years, and whatever we are talking about, not creating social monsters, creating good human beings and responsible citizens, that budding happens in the elementary classes. Once the child is capable enough and rational enough to take his decisions, changes do not come very easily. So the formative years in the school, one, the Jesuits are already doing it at certain places. I need this to be emulated everywhere in all Jesuit schools, whether they be the urban schools, the vernacular schools, or the rural schools. So if you can imbibe the local marginalized strata and population that Father had just pointed out, including transgenders and everybody else, and give them an equal opportunity of having Jesuit education in Jesuit institutions from the elementary level, then it will definitely make a change in the next 20 years in the society.
Thank you. Those who are all in the office bearers of the JAI, there is a concern expressed by many people, several of them. That is why we lack when it comes to the JAI and alumni and Jesuit education, etc. Where are our women? Where are our women in panelists and all these programs, etc.? I think you will take, I'm not going to ask you to answer that one. All of us are responsible, and I'm sure that we will take this as a big concern for the Jesuit education. Next time, we should not have only.
Father, I'll take 1 minute because people should not take back this doubt in their mind.
Yes,
you remember,
please.
Father, when we were in the Delhi meeting at St. Xavier School, Delhi, in the Raj Niwas Marg, you remember that we exclusively co-opted women because we were not in a position to elect them to the Jesuit National Committee in JAI over there, right? So we had 2 women nominated into our committee, and we made sure that hereafter for every zone we will have 1 out of 3 mandated for women, and the remaining 2 could be women or not be women, does not matter. So this change is definitely has been put into place, and it will be visible very soon.
Thank you. Last question before I conclude it. I just ask you, this question came from someone called Ramesh Kumar. He's asking, looking at, I'm sure that the back of his mind, the current situation in India, he says, how will the Jesuit education help to reduce fear in the society due to the present pandemic? And also, I am adding to that one, highly polarized society. How do you reduce this fear? How do you reduce this polarization? This is a specific question in the current context. I just ask Mr. Sandeep ji, in your opinion, what is that? Because it's a big concern. I hope all of you agree. No? Yes.
Fear comes maybe even when the situation right now outside in a very real way is definitely scary. But fear also arises from a place of insecurity. So I believe that when, again, I think I go back to that first statement I ever made in the beginning, a holistic and approach when it is made, you make people, you nurture people in such a way that they have an all-round development. They need to believe in themselves. They need to have the skill sets to adapt in every situation, and even if not even thrive in that situation, at least survive that situation. You do not want people to have, there's a lot of talk about how there was a mental pandemic where people had a lot of emotional issues, a lot of psychological issues during this pandemic, apart from the virus itself. So what happens in such times? You need to be strong for your families. You need to be strong for your colleagues, for the teams that you're in. For that to happen, you need to have a stable platform, which can come only in the formative years, and that learning that you get slowly evolves. That platform needs to be set at those formative years, and then the individual can build on that. If the platform itself is shaky, then that progress would happen very slowly, and by the time it happens, it might be even too late. So when the approach is a holistic approach, then there is a tendency to deal with whatever a situation you are put in. Even if you can't thrive it, at least you will learn how to survive it.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure that this is a very, very fruitful discussions and sharing all of us have. I just ask all of you briefly, don't take long time, don't take an explanation. Just the current situation of the Jesuit education and in the context where we are all living in. What is your advice to the Jesuit institutions, people who are responsible like us, people who are responsible in the schools, institutions, etc.? What will be us, looking as an alumni, I'm asking you, what would you want to see the Jesuit schools, and what would be your comment or opinion or your suggestion for all of us? Briefly. Let's start from Valentine, maybe.
So I would say I would like interconnectedness amongst Jesuit institutions. When I say that, I mean we are spread globally all across the world. So why can't someone sitting at home in a city like Mumbai, or even in a tier 2 city like, say, Palghar or any other place in Gujarat, avail of a course, avail of a degree from another university or another school or another college? So to connect Jesuit institutions on one platform and offer interdisciplinary study. Yeah.
Thank you. That is a very important point. Chendil, what is your comment for all
I
of
would
us?
like to supplement Valentine's suggestion, and Jai is also now contemplating to have a lot of webinars, so that we have a globe, we have a pool of intellectual among our Jesuit faculty and students, so that already we have a network that will go to enhance that. So I think definitely many of our institutions can collaborate on province or intra-province or throughout as a pan-India or even on a global level.
So more of collaboration and networking. That's what you are suggesting. Sandeep ji, just briefly, because lack of time, already organizers are, I'm sure that they are looking for.
I would like to second what Sendil sir and Valentine sir said. We need to make use of these online platforms, build about the networking collaborations, and learn from each other's experiences. It's simple.
Very good. Devendra, you have any specific thing?
Yes, very crisp. I have just 3 appreciations from my side for the Jesuits, and the appreciations that I have must be continued in the Jesuit system of education. That is what I want to tell you. 1, please, every Jesuit institution remain unadulterated. Do as you are doing, and you are doing a great work. I have 68 years of experience with you, although my age is only 57, but then I have to tell a lot about it. Second, please imbibe the latest in the education and technology, but simultaneously keep the ethics, morality, culture intact and growing in all our institutions.
Thank you.
The third, let us continue to teach faith, selflessness, and service above self to the coming generations also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I see, for your information, we have we had earlier Ratio Studiorum, then we have characteristics of Jesuit education, we have IPP and so on. Now we have come the 21st century Jesuit education document, which specifically identify our Jesuit education with 10 points. With that one, I'll conclude. Whatever you shared will come into this, and we are going to implement it in all our schools in the coming days, training our teachers and so on. Number 1 is, we are committed to create a safe and healthy environment for all. That is precisely going to be the face of Jesuit education. Number 2, we are committed to global citizenship. As a whole, universal society, we have decided. Third one is, the Jesuit schools are committed to the care of all creation. You have brought that point very well. Fourth one is, Jesuit schools are committed to being new in dialogue with other world views, other cultures, other religions, etc. Jesuit schools are committed to justice. That's the 5th point. Number 6 is we are committed to being accessible to all. Equity and inclusion will come there. Jesuit schools are committed to interculturality, which many of you brought out in your language at that time, whatever you have learned. 8th point is Jesuit schools are committed to being a global network. Just now you concluded with that advice for all of us, that we have taken it seriously. And Jesuit schools are committed to human excellence. All of you have said very clearly that part of holistic development and so on. And finally, Jesuit schools are committed to a lifelong learning. My dear brothers, my dear friends, my dear teachers, the companions, the JAI, and all the co-panelists, you wonderfully brought out all these aspects and made us to excel in our commitment. Thank you very much for being with us in this evening. I'm sure that all of us profited a lot from your wonderful reflections and experience. Over to Joshua. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Sunny. Thank you to the panelists. Well, Digital Jesuits do appreciate your suggestions that you put in with regard to a female panelist. And we would like to tell you that we did approach 2 female panelists, but because of time constraints, they also couldn't say, they couldn't commit to come for the event today. So we would like to kind of apologize to all of you for that, and we will do remember that in our future events. Well, I would now like to call upon Swarnava Hathi. Swarnava Hathi is the student of law in St. Xavier's, Kolkata. He is not a Jesuit, but he is a collaborator of the Digital Jesuits, and he is a part of our organizing team now. Swarnava Hathi, over to you for the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, brother. As we have come to the end of the panel discussion on Jesuit education for life, forming men and women for others, foremost, I thank Almighty God for giving us this day and also making this webinar possible by bestowing His grace and blessings. I am obliged to thank those people without whose support and guidance this webinar would not have been possible. I would thank very specially Reverend Father M.K. George. Out of your busy schedule, you wonderfully described as to how Jesuit education should create a politically critic character and explained as to how we should be critic of all ideologies and go ahead together in becoming, in the words of Pope Francis, a multilateral world rather than a multipolar world. This in a way set the tone for our discussion. I can't thank enough Reverend Father Sunny Jacob for becoming a wonderful moderator and dropping in your insightful reflections while moderating the event. If we take all those reflections and compile them, that alone becomes a fruitful discourse in itself. And thank you, Father, for also making us aware the 10 new goals of Jesuit education. Now, coming to our esteemed panelists, I thank every one of you for making time out of your busy schedule and enlightening us with your valuable insights. Thank you, Mr. Chenthil Kumar. You spoke about how the values of universal brotherhood and respect for life is certainly the primary goal of Jesuit education. Thank you, Dr. Devendra Singh. As you very nicely mentioned, your half a decade long relation with the Jesuits and your commitment towards this system. And also you laid down the global vision as to how the JAI should work. Thank you, Mr. Sandeep Singh, for explaining us how carefully the Jesuits form and mold the students to make them ready for the world in a holistic way. And lastly, thanks to Mr. Valentin Borges, you told us as to how there is an opportunity for everyone alike in a Jesuit education, and the unique aspect as to how it helps us to get adapted to not only different people, but also different cultures. And in a particular way, as it is customary, we can't thank enough Xavier Institute of Management and Reverend Father Joshi, the animator of the Digital Jesuits, by providing us the interface and the Zoom link. Thank you, Father. And this webinar would not have been a success without the wonderful audience from all over the world and from across the length and breadth of India for actively participating and coming up with important questions, which surely have enriched our webinar. We from the Digital Jesuits thank every one of you for your immense cooperation, and we are sure that this webinar has enriched us all. We wish to have you on board for our upcoming events as well. Until then, stay safe and stay well. Thank you all.